In early 2024, Microsoft surprised gamers by announcing its intentions to begin releasing some of its formerly exclusive titles on Nintendo and PlayStation consoles. The first of these to be released was the narrative adventure game Pentiment. I had played Pentiment previously on PC Game Pass, but the PlayStation version that was released on February 22nd had something shiny and new to it, a platinum trophy to be exact. The allure of this edition, coupled with the low price tag of only £16 was enough to make me want to pick it up again. So I did just that, eager to jump back into 16th century Bavaria, paintbrush in hand, ready to investigate the mysterious town of Tassing. So how did the first Xbox Studios game fare on PS5, and what did it take to earn the first Xbox Platinum trophy? Let's find out. Narrative adventure games can sometimes be a hard sell. Their focus on story and characters or puzzles over moment-to-moment gameplay means that if any of those things are subpar, then the game can often be left feeling dull and uninspired since there is nothing to help elevate the narrative. So, wherever possible, I am a lot more careful with what I choose to buy in this genre, looking at reviews and trying to find out who wrote the narrative before I make a decision. If it's something by Tim Schafer or Ron Gilbert, who both worked on some of the best adventure games of the 90s like Monkey Island, then my interest is sky high and I'll probably pick it up. But for new or lesser known developers, I sometimes need a bit more convincing. When Obsidian Entertainment announced that they were creating a narrative adventure game, I was very intrigued. Obsidian has made some incredible games in the past, like Fallout New Vegas and Neverwinter Nights 2, and their more recent titles like Pillars of Eternity and The Outer Worlds have not disappointed either. With these in mind, I thought it was worth giving this strange and unique looking game called Pentiment a chance. Set in the 16th century Bavarian town of Tassing, you play as Andreas Mahler, a journeyman artist working to become a master. As part of fulfilling his apprenticeship, Andreas works as an artist in the nearby abbey alongside Benedictine monks. While Andreas works on his masterpiece, a visiting nobleman is murdered inside the abbey, and the artist takes it upon himself to solve the murder and clear the name of his mentor, a kindly old monk who found the body. The threads that the narrative begins to weave are interesting ones. Everyone loves a good murder mystery, to be sure, but this tale is elevated by the game's large cast of characters. Investigating the heinous murder, Andreas must talk to the people living in Tassing, learn about their personalities, their fears and hopes, their families, and most importantly, what they know about the murder. Everyone in the town of Tassing and the nearby abbey feels so fully realised and unique. The sprawling tapestry of their lives is cleverly stitched together to give you a sense of what the town has been through, and how each person living there relates to each other. It's all done so well that it's hard not to feel like Tassing is a real place full of real people. The trick to this feeling isn't only the incredibly smart writing that Pentiment has, but in the way that the game structures the time you spend with it. In each day, there is only so much investigating and talking that Andreas can do before he has to go to sleep. You can have lots of small conversations with different people around town, but most of the main investigative avenues, like tailing someone, will take up time. Choosing to follow one lead might close off another one, and spending dinner with one family in the town might let you hear some relevant information about that character's past and motivations, but what could you have learned if you had chosen to eat with a different family? On top of this, Andreas is under a time limit. He only has 2 days to investigate before he must present his findings, so what leads do you choose to follow up on, and what ones do you have to leave alone? Pentiment always makes sure to just dangle a few more threads for you to follow than you actually have time for, and this helps make future runs so much more enjoyable, because you are still seeing new things, hearing new perspectives, and asking yourself, if you had followed this trail before, would you have made the same choices on your first run? Because of these constraints and limitations, getting the Platinum Trophy does require some save file manipulation, to allow yourself time to make certain choices for one trophy, then reload and make a different one. But even doing this, you still need to replay at least a partial second playthrough to see all the major plot points Pentiment has to offer, and earn the trophies for seeing those through. Surprisingly, Pentiment doesn't actually end once you have completed your investigation into Baron Rothvogel's murder and offer evidence for your chosen suspect. 7 years later, the second act begins. Andreas returns to Tassing as a master artist with a new apprentice in tow, and it's here I began to see the true beauty of the story of Pentiment. As you would expect, the choices that you made at the end of Act 1 have affected the town. But more than that, seemingly innocuous choices and comments that you made 7 years ago are remembered by the people of the town, and they react to these, with some characters' demeanour changing towards you quite drastically. Tassing changes as the story changes, and just as the mysteries deepen over time, so do the relationships you see unfold in the town. Characters who were young when you were first visited are older when you return, or married with children, and characters that Andreas knew in his youth might have passed. Learning about these characters by talking to them and exploring the town is about as much gameplay as Pentiment gets. There are a few puzzles like solving a cipher or a few mini-games about bending horseshoes and things like that, but these are few and far between, although most of them do have trophies attached to them. Most of what you're able to do though is just to walk and talk, choose dialogue options, or choose courses of action for Andreas to take. There is a small RPG aspect to the game, if only briefly. At the beginning of the game, you can choose a few options that relate to Andreas' backstory, such as what he studied at university, where he lived, and what he was like in his youth. And these often open up new dialogue options to try and relate to people or influence them. Many of these choices seem unimportant when you first make them in conversation, but as I said, almost all of these are remembered. There are moments in the game where you have to persuade someone to do something or give you some information, but these are not simple dialogue checks or rolls of the dice like in some other games. Instead, the persuasion attempts are much more natural and realistic, taking into account your previous behaviours and things that you have said before, however unrelated to the current attempt that they are. These persuasion attempts often have important consequences too, being able to drastically change the direction of your investigation. Not all of the dialogue and choices you can make though are related to the overall mystery that pulls Pentiment's narrative together. Many of them are just there to build the world around you as you play, teaching you about the time the game is set in and how different classes of people view broad topics such as religion or class structures within the context of the town. Pentiment has an incredibly useful glossary that you can open up with the touchpad when you see certain highlighted or underlined words. These will often give you a brief description of things like what period of the day Matin is, or what the church selling indulgences mean, which, although are never necessary things to understand the story going on around you, add so much context and background to help you understand the characters. Although much of Pentiment's narrative is based on these struggles and conflicts, its artistic style is used to reflect its 16th century period as well. Pentiment's graphics look like medieval manuscript paintings, and the game is framed as if it's being read through an old book. The transitions between scenes or areas flip like pages being turned in a book, and as I mentioned, pressing the touchpad to bring up the game's glossary will zoom out to show the game as just an illustration in the book, the edges filled with notes or strange medieval drawings of animals. The way that the characters move across the gorgeous and detailed backgrounds gives them a sense of puppetry, as if you were watching a play made from little paper cutouts. As you talk to people, the text boxes are filled with beautiful scripts that fill themselves in as the character speaks, with different characters having different styles and fonts depending on their personality. The monks, for example, all speak in an intricate, beautiful, thick script, whereas upper and middle class characters use a more flowing, italicized one. As the words fill in while the characters are talking, you hear the scratching of quill on parchment or the tapping of a printing press. These fonts will change as you learn more about the characters too. For example, when Andreas realizes a character is more educated than he initially thought, his font will change to reflect this. There are other details too in the way that dialogue is presented that I absolutely adore. As words are being written out, they become punctuated in different ways. Colours are used to imply changes in tone or important terms. Outbursts are often accompanied by splotches of ink dotted around the word like it was written by someone shaking a fountain pen. Mistakes are made as the words flow across the text boxes that look like scrolls, being corrected as the sentence finishes. For a game that has no spoken dialogue, It's an incredible way of getting the tone and emphasis that is inherent in speaking across. I never thought I would spend so long gushing about fonts, but here we are. Naturally, in a game with so many avenues for investigation, there are a ton of missable trophies. If you want to get the trophies in 1.5 playthroughs the way I did, a guide is almost necessary. There are so many specific dialogue options that you'll need to pick to complete persuasion checks, which not only has a trophy for doing 5 of them, but is necessary for much of your investigation. In my opinion though, I would recommend a blind playthrough first. Pentiment isn't a very long game, it only took me 20 hours to get the platinum overall, so I would say a single playthrough is only 15 or so hours long. And I feel like an extra 15 hours to get the full impact of the twists and turns of Pentiment's excellent narrative is well worth doing. Other than being aware of the trophies you need for specific endings or choices that you have to make, the rest of the trophy list isn't that difficult at all. There are a couple of collectibles that you need to look out for, like examining 10 different flowers or petting 5 different animals, but there are lots of opportunities to get these, so it's not something that you have to spend too much time worrying about. There are also trophies related to some of the mini-games you have to play, such as spinning wool, cutting cookies, or winning and losing all of your money in a card game. The remainder of the other trophies are all related to specific choices that you have to make as you interact with other characters, for doing things like headbutting a character or seducing a different one. Most of these can be done in your first playthrough if you use a guide, but some of them are exclusive, so again, you will need to reload your save or replay another act. By the time I had finished my first playthrough, I only had 4 trophies left to get, which is why I only needed to replay the first act again for some of the last story trophies. Once you have seen almost all there is to see in Pentiment, you will earn the Platinum Trophy, which is disappointingly named Platinum Trophy. I really hope this isn't a recurring name for Xbox Studio releases. Pentiment is a wonderful game. I know that narrative adventure games aren't for everyone, but if you enjoy games like Oxenfree or Night in the Woods, then I think you will like this one. The tale is a brilliantly layered mystery that manages to be engaging throughout, and has many twists and turns that I didn't see coming at all. It's a story full of emotion and wit. Its unique tale is just as interesting as its unique art style, and I think that the way it does dialogue, both visually and in content, is something that other games could stand to learn from. If Obsidian ever decide to make another game in this genre, it's safe to say that I will be beyond excited. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this review, and if you found it useful or interesting at all, please consider subscribing. Let me know if Pentiment has caught your interest, or if you have any other recommendations for quirky mystery games. If you want to, please check out pressxgaming.com for written reviews, and until next time, happy hunting.